look at this little guy. You think I wouldn't give him a little smooch, a little peck on that forehead? I absolutely would. With big white button eyes and floppy cat ears. Why did I do that? My hand awkwardly outstretched behind me, reaching for the doorknob. I don't want your parents to see me, because I'm afraid they won't let us play anymore. Mr. Widemouth is a child groomer. Gonna give the dog a leg. You're gonna give the dog a leg. Boo! Did I get you? Did I scare you? Well, good, cause guess what? It's freaking spooky month. So hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. I'm Jessica Laylah, and it's spooky month, so we're doing spooky things. And one spooky thing we've done on this channel quite a bit this year has been creepypastas. And by quite a bit, I mean like 2-3 videos max. I know. So because it's spooky month, I thought we could revisit one of my favorite things, classic creepypastas. Now, to be upfront and to be fair, this is probably going to be our last time reading creepypastas for a good long while, so I thought, let's go out with a bang. We have read a lot of the classics, Jeff the Killer, Smile Dog. I did read Slender Man, but then it didn't get included in a video, but I did read that one. I did! Look at this! Look at how far I can bend that! We read Candle Cove, that's apparently another classic one. Russian Sleep Experiment, we've read a lot of the classics. Now, how would I define a classic creepypasta? I would probably say anything that's over a decade old. You know, from around when it was its most popular, from like the earlier 2000s to say 2012. I don't have a timeline. I'm not a creepypasta scientist, so that's exactly what we're gonna be doing tonight, reading some classic creepypastas. So everyone, what I want you to do is to grab your snacks, grab your drinks, get all comfy cozy, and let's just dive right in with the first creepypasta. So this first one is called Licking, and it was written August 19th, 2010. And unfortunately it was written by Anonymous, so I have no idea who to credit. My great-grandmother lived alone up in the mountains at her cabin. Her husband was dead, so she was there all alone. She only had one companion, and that was her loving dog. They both adored each other, and the dog was a great comfort to her. Every night when she went to bed, the dog would lick her hand to let her know that he was there to protect her. One night, she had gone to bed, and the dog had licked her hand, like he had done routinely every night since her husband died. But this night was different. She had woken up in the middle of the night because she heard her dog whimpering. She wanted to comfort him and let her know she was there for him, so she stuck her hand out by the bed, and she felt the dog gently lick her hand like always. She figured he was just cold, so she went back to sleep. The dog's whimpering had woken her up a second time in the night, so she stuck her hand out. The dog licked it, and she went back to sleep. This happened a third time, and she stuck her hand out, and the dog stopped whimpering and came and licked her hand. She stayed awake a few moments afterward, and she went to sleep again. In the morning, she woke up and stuck her hand out by the bed, but nothing licked her hand. She thought the dog had already awakened and was just in the front room. She rolled over and got out of bed and heard a drip. Drip, drip, drip. She thought the sound was coming from the kitchen, so she walked over and turned the handles on the sink faucet, but it wasn't the source of the noise. After frustratingly checking the sink and its pipes, she gave up and continued to her bathroom to take a shower. As she got closer to the bathroom door, it was evident that the sound was coming from within. She opened the door, looked above the bathtub, and gasped in utter horror. There, hanging by the light by his collar, was her loving companion. His blood was dripping into the bathtub. She screamed and began to cry. Wiping her eyes and sobbing, she turned and looked into the mirror. In the mirror, she saw the dog's reflection, and written on the mirror in her dog's blood, with drips and streaks hanging down from each letter, were the words, "Humans can lick too." Is that implying she was being licked by a human? Now, why would you have to kill the dog just to lick an old woman's hand? You could have given the dog a leg. You could have given the dog a leg. Anyways, on to the next one. So this one was written September 19th, 2012, and I believe it's pronounced Ickbarr Bigelsteine. And that was written by Stephen D. Harris. When I was a small child, I was terrified of the dark. I still am, but back when I was around 6 years old, I couldn't go a full night without crying out for one of my parents to search beneath my bed or in my closet for whatever monster I thought was waiting to eat me. Even with the nightlight, I would still see dark shapes moving around the corners of the room, or strange faces looking in on me from my bedroom window. My parents would do their best to console me, telling me that it was just a bad dream or a trick of the light, but in my young mind, I was positive that the second I fell asleep, the bad things would get me. Most of the time, I would just hide under the blankets until I became tired enough to stop worrying. But every now and then, I would become so panicked that I would run screaming into my parents' room, waking up my brother and sister in the process. After an ordeal like that, there would be no way anyone would be getting a full night's rest. Eventually, after one particularly traumatizing night, my parents had enough. Unfortunately for them, they understood the futility in arguing with a 6-year-old and knew that they would be unable to convince me to rid of my childish fears through reason and logic. They had to be clever. It was my mother's idea to stitch together my little bedtime friend. She collected a large assortment of random pieces of fabric and her sewing machine and created what I would later refer to as Mr. Ickbarr Bigelsteine, or Ick for short. Ick was a sock monster, as my mother called him. He was made to keep me safe while I slept at night by scarring away all other monsters. He was pretty damn creepy, I had to admit. Honestly, looking back on it all now, I'm still impressed that my mom could think of something so strange and disturbing looking. Ickbarr had the stitched-together look of a Frankenstein gremlin, with big white button eyes and floppy cat ears. Why did I do that? His little arms and legs were made from a pair of my sister's black and white striped socks, and the half of his face that was green was made from one of my brother's tall football socks. His head could be described as bulbous, and as for his mouth, my mom attached a piece of white fabric and sewed a zigzag pattern to shape a wide grin of sharp teeth. I loved him at once. From then on, Ick never left my side. Me when I'm dating someone. So long as it was after dusk, of course. Ick didn't like the sun and would get upset if I tried to bring him to school with me. That was okay. I only needed him at night to keep away the boogeymen, which was what he was good at. So every night at bedtime, Ick would tell me where the monsters were hiding, and I would place him near the section of my room closest to the spookiness. If there was something in the closet, Ick would block the door. If there was a dark creature scratching at my window, Ick would be pressed up against the glass. If there was a big hairy beast under my bed, then under the bed he went. Sometimes the monsters weren't even in my room. Sometimes they would hide in my dreams, and Ickbarr would have to come with me into my nightmares. It was fun bringing Ick into my dream world, as he and I would spend hours fighting off ghouls and demons. The best part was in my dreams, Ick could talk to me for real. "How much do you love me?" he would ask. "More than anything," I would always tell him. One night, in a dream, after I had lost my first tooth, Ick asked me for a favor. "Can I have your tooth?" I asked him why. "To help me kill the bad things," he said. The next morning at breakfast, my mom asked me where my tooth went. From what she told me, the tooth fairy didn't find it under my pillow. When I told her that I gave it to Ickbarr, she just shrugged and went back to feeding my little sister. From then on, every time I lost a tooth, I would give it to Ick. He would always thank me, of course, and tell me that he loved me. Eventually, though, I ran out of baby teeth, and I was beginning to get a little too old to still be playing with dolls. So Ick just sat there on my bookshelf collecting dust, slowly fading away from my attention. Over time, the nightmares, however, became worse than ever. So bad that they even began to follow me to the waking world, terrorizing every dark corner or rustle in the bushes. After one particularly bad night biking home from a friend's house where I swore a pack of rabid dogs were chasing me, I got home to find something strange waiting for me in my room. There, on my bed, standing fully upright in the soft glow of the moonlight from my window, was Ickbarr. At first, I just thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. They had been all evening, so I tried to flick on the lights. Another flick of the light switch, then another, and another with no change to the darkness. It was then that I started to get nervous. I backed away slowly towards the door behind me, my eyes never leaving the shape of Ick's silhouette, my hand awkwardly outstretched behind me, reaching for the doorknob. I was just about to get my ass out of there when I heard the door slam itself shut, locking me into the darkness. In nothing but shadows and silence, I stood frozen in place, not even breathing. For how long, I can't say, but after what felt like a lifetime of cold fear, I heard the shrill, familiar voice. You stopped feeding me, so why should I protect you? Protect me from what? Let me show you. I blinked once and everything changed. I wasn't in my room anymore. I was somewhere else. It wasn't hell, but the comparison wasn't far off. It was some sort of forest, a horrible, nightmarish place where partial hung from the canopy and the ground swarmed with carnivorous insects. A thick fog wafted through the air, and with it the stench of rotting meat, while chartreuse lightning flashed across the sky. In the distance, I could hear the agonizing screams of something not quite human. My head throbbed like it was about to explode, the pain forcing out a river of tears. In my mind, I heard his voice again. This is what your reality would become without me. I felt earth-shaking footsteps approaching fast. I'm the only one who can stop it. Who's behind me now? Huge and angry, hot breath across my back. Bring me what I need, and I will. I woke up before I could turn around. The following day, I raided my parents' closet for my brother's baby teeth, giving them all to Ickbarr. Almost immediately, the night terror ceased, and I was more or less able to go on about my life as normal. From time to time, I would have to sneak into my little sister's room and snatch what was meant for the tooth fairy, or strangle one of the neighborhood cats and pry out its sharp little incisors. Anything to ward off the visions. Anything from a shark tooth necklace to a cavity ridden by cuspid. I also began to notice that Ick would move about my room whenever I left for any length of time, rearranging my stuff and hanging additional curtains. And it's not at this point that you're like, hey, maybe I should get checked into some, mental health facility. There's a toy that your mom sewed you that has come to life and is protecting you from hell, and you're like, this is normal. He was even beginning to look more lifelike somehow. In the bright light, his teeth would glisten, and he was warm to the touch. As much as he creeped me out, I couldn't work up the courage to just destroy him, knowing perfectly well where that would leave me. So I went on collecting teeth for Ick throughout all of high school and college. The older I got, the more things I would learn to fear, the more teeth Ick would need to keep me safe. I'm 22 years old now, with a decent job, my own apartment, and a set of dentures. It's been almost a month since Ick's last meal, and the horrors are starting to crowd around me once more. I took a detour through a parking garage after work tonight, found a man fumbling with his car keys. His teeth were stained yellow from a lifetime of cigarettes and coffee. Even still, I had to use a hammer to get out the molars. When I got back to my apartment, he was waiting for me. On the ceiling, in the corner, 2 wide eyes and mouth of razors. How much do you love me? He asks. More than anything, I reply, taking off my coat. More than anything in the world. Wow, clap that up. See, creepypastas that aren't demons. I love creepypastas that aren't Satan's in my room having a party. A lot of the classic creepypastas I've read have been pretty bad. No offense to those authors, but a lot of creepy or older creepypastas are just really poorly written because they probably were written by teens to maybe even children. And it's about a time and a place for a lot of them. So that one was really good. Wasn't too creepy, wasn't too silly. And I feel like it slapped. Sweet and short and to the point. We love that here. Anyways, on to the next one. So this next one is called Rap Rat, and it was written January 25th, 2012. And this is by Canadian Cowboy. Ever heard of Nightmare? Like a lot of other games in the 90s, it came with a VHS, which you timed with your play. The character on the video would give you instructions on what to do while you played the game in real time. Being a scaredy cat, I refused to play it when my mom bought it for us. My brother was disappointed about not being able to play Nightmare, but my mom had a solution. She brought out Rap Rat. It was a cheap, dingy little thing, catered to kids my age. You went around the board, collected cheese, and the first player to reach the end would win. It seemed simple enough, and since it reminded us of Mousetrap, which we didn't have, there were no objections. We popped the movie into the VHS and set up the board. The first part of the video was just a simple explanation of the rules as well as instructions on how the game worked. Then, Rap Rat came on the TV. He was not what any of us had been expecting. My smaller brother, who was only 3 at the time, immediately left the room crying. The rat did not even resemble a rat. The ears were far too big, it had a mouth lined with 2 teeth, and the inside of the mouth looked almost swollen. The most striking part about the thing, though, was the eyes. They were large, glassy, and fish-like. I asked, then bothered, then begged my mom to turn it off. Rap Rat suddenly shouted loudly, screaming and wailing, saying, "Wait your turn!" in a demonic low-pitched voice that was not at all like his normal, obnoxious, nasal voice. In the background, we could hear the narrator saying, "He's Rap Rat, and he's the boss," over and over again, in an overly serious tone. The video was indescribable. Images crossed the screen in quick succession, overcut with Rap Rat's expressionless eyes. The images were some sort of things I was afraid of at the time. A person looking over a balcony, a hornet slowly stinging someone's eye, an extreme close-up of a tarantula, a pit full of writhing cobras, and a bloodied syringe filled with green fluid. And their mother's not turning this off? We immediately turned the video off, and I ran out of the room screaming, slamming my door. It took my mom 20 minutes to convince me that the video was gone, that I would never, ever see it again. I had nightmares all week about Rap Rat. That wasn't the last time I saw Rap Rat. Well, my girlfriend and I were preparing to move in together. I was cleaning out the closet of my room and found Rap Rat again, with the same VHS and the same board game inside. It was almost perfectly intact, save for a thick layer of cobwebs and dust bunnies on it. This was strange. Didn't my mother get rid of it? And what was the game doing in my room? I let out a bit of a gasp when I found it. And my girlfriend came into the room, asking what was the matter. Breathing harshly, I said, "Rap Rat." She laughed a bit, asking if it was a joke. I shook my head, explaining that it wasn't. She didn't believe me. Nobody did. And I decided the only way to prove it to her was to show her the video. I borrowed my neighbor's VHS and played the video for her. However, the images had changed. I saw a clown, its nose bursting and spraying blood onto the screen. I saw a woman alone in a dark room. I saw a man being forced to pick up white-hot metal and hold it in his outstretched hand, turning his hand into a leathery mess. The scratching I heard as a child continued, picking up louder and louder. Then Rap Rat showed up and began twisting and convulsing, its arms thrusting this way and that. The costume wasn't a costume anymore. The felt was real fur. Its face wasn't plastic, but instead a bristle of thorns with teeth. The eyes turned inwards and suddenly popped out again. Rap Rat's huge fish eyes were inside out, staring right at me, watching my every move, my every expression. It grinned widely and gestured at my girlfriend and I with a single outstretched, inhuman hand. I could hear the faintest scratching at my front door. And you didn't turn it off! The TV went blank and showed static. The scratching got louder. It wasn't scratching anymore, but thumping, the thumping of tiny feet on wood. My girlfriend embraced me in fear and my senses kicked in. Before anything else could happen, I stopped the video, ejected it, and unplugged the VHS. The scratching stopped. When I looked out the living room window, nothing was there. The police showed up soon after, warning us that a neighbor had seen a figure outside of our door and had called in concern. My girlfriend and I simply couldn't explain what had happened, and had to tell the police officer that it was us. I was furious that a children's game was terrifying me. I went to pick up the tape, but the VHS burned my hand. It felt like I had touched a Bunsen burner on the highest setting. We had to get the oven mitts from the kitchen in order to take it out, and even then, it was scorching hot. I brought it outside, tossed it down the sidewalk, and crushed it with my winter boots. My girlfriend and I had nightmares every night. We would both wake up in the middle of the night and describe eerily similar images that we saw in our sleep. The scratching would always be there at night, when lights were off and the room was pitch black, save for the moonlight coming in through the window. Now, though, the scratching would happen every time I went near the front door, and every time we said Rap Rat's name. It sounded as if something very small was dragging something across the ground outside of the door. Pacing, waiting. I would simply wait, with the covers pulled up to my neck until I succumbed to exhaustion. At this point, I was determined to sue the company for damages. The first thing I did was call my mother and ask her where she got Rap Rat. She had no idea. I found a merchant who sold versions of Rap Rat and asked how I could get in touch with the company. He sent me this email. I don't know about the game, but I know it was created by the same people who created Nightmare. The company is called A Couple of Cowboys. Try them. I did a bit more research and discovered that the company became defunct in 1994. only 2 years after the company created Rap Rat. I discovered why they did soon after, how Rap Rat came to be. In 1992, the year of the game's development, a couple of cowboys had commissioned a manufacturing company in Haiti to create the doll portrayed in the game. The company who created the puppet ran a sweatshop where they forced women and children to produce the various components of the puppet, including the felt and plastic of the doll. One day, a young Haitian girl got her arm caught in the industrial sewing machine. The spring loader, unable to handle the weight on the machine, came loose and struck the child's neck, killing her instantly. A few days after the funeral, the mother of the child came to the factory demanding to see the owner, who denied that he had anything to do with it. In a fit of rage, the mother said that the blood from the innocent would seep into every crevice of the doll, every component with it which was created, and all who touched it would die. She claimed to have summoned a fear demon and screamed at the top of her lungs. I'm not going to say that in case that's a real demon's name, but it will curse you. The owner simply laughed and told his corporate bosses about it. They spread the joke from person to person, and the game was renamed Rap Rat, a loose anagram of the demon's name. Each recitation of the name brought it with a greater and greater curse. Only 2 years after Rap Rat was created, the company was shut down, and the owners hired by Mattel. There were stories of the workers begging for days off, skipping work for weeks and weeks, finding the puppet in strange places. Sooner were the stories of grim, violent in which the workers would stab their hands and burn themselves to death, writing, "I am fear," on the nearest surface in blood. Nobody knows where the Rap Rat doll went after the original creators disappeared. Some say that the last thing the victims saw before going insane were large, sunken, fish-like eyes. Words of warning: never, ever say the name out loud. Saying a demon's name out loud is an invitation to them, a calling. If you have already done this, it cannot be undone. Do not try to speak or contact it. Avoid being awake between 3:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. when Rap Rat is the most likely to try to scare you. The audio. The VHS is back. I thought I stomped it. Smashed it to kingdom come, but it's back. I found it in my sock drawer yesterday. This time I was ready. A whole bunch of people have been contacting me trying to get the tape or some sort of video from the board game. My answer to you is that it's just too dangerous. If I did that, it could very well drive you insane, scare you to death. The video and the game and Rap Rat itself had some sort of strange power. Rap Rat follows me everywhere I go. I see little shadows in the corner, or hear sounds coming down the hallway when I'm the only one home. If Rap Rat is there, it will let you know, but it will never let you see it. Until it's too late, of course. A lot of people have been watching the normal video from the normal board game. That's the thing, Rap Rat can be normal. It will trick you into thinking it's just a puppet and then stalk you day and night. So in case you don't know, because I had no idea what this is, Nightmare is a popular interactive video board game that combines elements of traditional board games with multimedia components. It was released in 1991 by a couple of cowboys and J.W. Spares and Sons as the Atmosphere series. Wow, that's cool. Why don't we do cool things as a society anymore? We don't have anything like that. Anyways, I have never heard of that. Never knew that was a thing. I did grow up with a lot of VHS stuff. I just didn't grow up with that side of things, I guess. Obviously, you know, I've said it before, I don't love the stories where it's like, demons, because not only is it corny and overdone, I don't like reading about Satan. So I'm never gonna, like, really vibe with those stories, just personally. It's okay if you do, whatever. I'm not you, you're not me. This is kind of one of my issues with the more classic creepypastas, is that they're either, like, really poorly explained or just kind of goofy. Like, the concept was cool, but then they kind of didn't write it very good. So I'm reading it and I'm like, for most of it, I felt like I was just dropped in the middle of it. So anyways, let's move on to our next one. So this next one is called Mr. Widemouth, and it was written October 25th, 2010. It was written by Perfect Circle 35. During my childhood, my family was like a drop of water in a vast river, never remaining in one location for long. We settled in Rhode Island when I was 8, and there we remained until I went to college in Colorado Springs. Most of my memories are rooted in Rhode Island, but there are fragments in the attic of my brain which belong to the various homes we had lived in when I was much younger. Most of these memories are unclear and pointless. Chasing after another boy in the backyard of a house in North Carolina, trying to build a raft to float on the creek behind the apartment we rented in Pennsylvania, and so on. But there is one set of memories which remains as clear as glass, as though they were just made yesterday. I often wonder whether these memories are simply lucid dreams produced by the long sickness I experienced that spring, but in my heart, I know they are real. We were living in a house just outside the bustling metropolis of New Vineyard, Maine. Population, 643. It was a large structure, especially for a family of 3. There were a number of rooms that I didn't see in the 5 months we resided there. In some ways, it was a waste of space, but it was the only house on the market at the time, at least within an hour's commute to my father's place of work. The day after my 5th birthday, attended by my parents alone, I came down with a fever. The doctor said I had mononucleosis, which meant no rough play and more fever for at least another 3 weeks. It was horrible timing to be bedridden. We were in the process of packing our things to move to Pennsylvania, and most of my things were already packed away in boxes, leaving my room barren. My mother brought me ginger ale and books several times a day, and these served the function of being my primary form of entertainment for the next few weeks. Boredom always loomed just around the corner, waiting to rear its ugly head and compound my misery. I don't exactly recall how I met Mr. Widemouth. I think it was about a week after I was diagnosed with mono. My first memory of the small creature was asking him if he had a name. He told me to call him Mr. Widemouth because his mouth was large. In fact, everything about him was large in comparison to his body. His head, his eyes, his crooked ears, but his mouth was by far the largest. "You look kind of like a Furby," I said as he flipped through one of my books. Mr. Widemouth stopped and gave me a puzzled look.
"Furby? What's a Furby?"
he asked. I shrugged. You know, the toy, the little robot with the big ears. You can pet and feed them, almost like a real pet. I still have mine. Its eyes are eternally closed.
"Oh,
Mr. Widemouth resumed his activity.
you don't need one of those. They aren't the same as having a real friend."
I remember Mr. Widemouth disappearing every time my mother stopped by to check in on me.
"I lay under your bed,"
he later explained.
"I don't want your parents to see me because I'm afraid they won't let us play anymore."
Mr. Widemouth is a child groomer. We didn't do much during those first few days. Mr. Widemouth just looked at my books, fascinated by the stories and pictures they contained. The 3rd or 4th morning after I met him, he greeted me with a large smile on his face.
"I have a new game we can play,"
he said.
"We have to wait until after your mother comes to check on you because she can't see us play it. It's a secret game."
Child groomer? After my mother delivered more books and soda at the usual time, Mr. Widemouth slipped out from under the bed and tugged my hand.
"We have to go to the room at the end of the hallway,"
he said. I objected at first, as my parents had forbidden me to leave my bed without their permission, but Mr. Widemouth persisted until I gave in. The room in question had no furniture or wallpaper. Its only distinguishing feature was a window opposite the doorway. Mr. Widemouth darted across the room and gave the window a firm push, flinging it open. He then beckoned me to look out at the ground below. We were on the 2nd story of the house, but it was on a hill, and from this angle the drop was farther than the 2 stories due to the incline.
"I like to play pretend up here,"
Mr. Widemouth explained.
"I pretend there is a big, soft trampoline below this window, and I jump. If you pretend hard enough, you bounce back up like a feather. I want you to try."
I was a 5-year-old with a fever, so only a hint of skepticism darted through my thoughts as I looked down and considered the possibility. "It's a long drop," I said.
"But that's all part of the fun. It wouldn't be fun if it was only a short drop. If it were that way, you may as well just bounce on a real trampoline."
I toyed with the idea, picturing myself falling through thin air only to bounce back to the window on something unseen by human eyes. But the realist in me prevailed. "Maybe some other time," I said. "I don't know if I have enough imagination. I could get hurt." Mr. Widemouth's face contorted into a snarl, but only for a moment. Anger gave way to disappointment.
"If you say so,"
he said. He spent the rest of the day under my bed, quiet as a mouse. The following morning, Mr. Widemouth arrived holding a small box.
"I want to teach you how to juggle,"
he said.
"Here are some things you can use to practice before I start giving you lessons."
I looked in the box. It was full of knives. Mr. Widemouth, you're not very good at manipulating people, even 5-year-olds. My parents will kill me, I shouted, horrified that Mr. Widemouth had brought knives into my room, objects that my parents would never allow me to touch. I'll be spanked and grounded for a year. Mr. Widemouth frowned.
It's fun to juggle with things. I want you to try it.
I pushed the box away. I can't, I'll get in trouble. Knives aren't safe to just throw in the air. Mr. Widemouth's frown deepened into a scowl. He took the box of knives and slid under my bed, remaining there the rest of the day. I began to wonder how often he was under me. I started having trouble sleeping after that. Mr. Widemouth often woke me up at night, saying he put a real trampoline under the window. A big one, that I couldn't see in the dark. I always declined and tried to go back to sleep, but Mr. Widemouth persisted. Sometimes he stayed by my side until early in the morning, encouraging me to jump. He wasn't so fun to play with anymore. My mother came to me one morning and told me I had her permission to walk around outside. She thought the fresh air would be good for me, especially after being confined to my room for so long. Ecstatic, I put on my sneakers and trotted out to the back porch, yearning for the feeling of sun on my face. Mr. Widemouth was waiting for me.
I have something I want you to see,
he said. I must have given him a weird look because he then said,
It's safe, I promise.
I followed him to the beginning of a deer trail which ran through the woods behind the house.
This is an important path,
he explained.
I've had lots of friends about your age. When they were ready, I took them down this path to a special place. You aren't ready yet, but one day I hope to take you there.
I returned to the house wondering what kind of place lay beyond that trail. 2 weeks after I met Mr. Widemouth, the last of our things had been packed into a moving truck. I would be in the cab of that truck, sitting next to my father for the long drive to Pennsylvania. I considered telling Mr. Widemouth that I would be leaving, but even at 5 years old, I was beginning to suspect that perhaps the creature's intentions were not to my benefit, despite what he said otherwise. For this reason, I decided to keep my departure a secret. My father and I were in the truck at 4 a.m. He was hoping to make it to Pennsylvania by lunchtime tomorrow with the help of an endless supply of coffee and a 6-pack of energy drinks. He seemed more like a man who was about to run a marathon rather than one who was about to spend 2 days sitting still. Early enough for you? He asked. I nodded and placed my head against the window, hoping for some sleep before the sun came up. I felt my father's hand on my shoulder. This is the last move, son, I promise. I know it's hard for you, as sick as you've been. Once Daddy gets promoted, we can settle down and you can make friends. I opened my eyes as we backed out of the driveway. I saw Mr. Widemouth's silhouette in my bedroom window. He stood motionless until the truck was about to turn onto the main road. He gave a pitiful little wave goodbye. Steak knife in hand. I didn't wave back. Years later, I returned to New Vineyard. The piece of land our house stood upon was empty except for the foundation, as the house burned down a few years after my family left. Out of curiosity, I followed the deer trail that Mr. Widemouth had shown me. Part of me expected him to jump out from behind a tree and scare the living crap out of me, but I felt that Mr. Widemouth was gone, somehow tied to the house that no longer existed. The trail ended at the New Vineyard Memorial Cemetery. I noticed that many of the tombstones belonged to children. What? Let's see, Mr. Widemouth explained. So he's just something that convinces his kids that he's their friend and then kills them? Not a very good Furby! And he's kind of cute looking in the pictures. Like, look at this little guy. You think I wouldn't give him a little smooch, a little peck on that forehead? I absolutely would. Anyways, on to the next one. I don't want to read this anymore. Because I don't know where it's going, so I'm like, I'm scared. He slowly closed the door to her room and locked it. Yeah, I had no idea it was about that. It was just one of the top recommended ones, so... Okay! So yeah, that was our final one for the night. That was a couple different classic creepypastas. As I said, this is going to be our last creepypasta for now, for at least a good long while, for the foreseeable future, so I hope you all enjoyed. Creepypasta is either really good or really bad, and there's very little in between. I love creepypasta, and I am glad to know what I've been missing out on all these years. So hopefully you all enjoyed. The stories will be linked down below if you want to go read through them, read through the comments, check them out for yourself, or check out the authors just in general. So thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and hopefully I will see you all here next time for Spooky Month.